Now, another unique path to a situation where, again, there is clearly not going to be an immediate solution or enough resources. A principle which some people might replicate in a poor way or translate or mishandle or misrespond or react poorly to over time, which needs to be corrected. But ultimately, what could we do? What can we do? Most people today think it's totally insane to take in mentally ill or drug addicted or just disabled conditioned person. People sort of sucking on the system, if you will, the most by conservative standards. Uh, well, by the modern standards, that puts you under a great deal of legal stressors and accountability for a sporadic, uncertain situation where you conduct your paranoia based on what people have to lose if they mess with you. And, ongoingly, since this sort of pandemic of, middle 19th century emotions have arisen, um, a lot could be considered in that. Not to say there wasn't a criminal body of uncertain uh, tendencies in society, but ultimately, people have modern expectations and modern needs to be met if they are even to consider such a sort of adoption. Um, a lot of people, a lot of single mothers out there could adapt to this in security for their children in situations the government isn't able to and immediately address a prayer sent to God, answered through them. And, you know, as much as people are just like, that's crazy these days. When that becomes crazy in a state, a country like America, which was founded on such interest and principles, so easily once managed through the church because of the strategic sort of simplicity and sort of conduct of the culture. Um, a measure which actually could be remedied by modern considerations. If these people are willing to put this kind of concern down on the table, could there begin to be a nonprofit collection of people maintaining a secure database of people undergoing this process instead of paying taxes? Instead of saying, hey, government, here's my taxes, do something big with it, put some skin in on the game and say, you know what? These people can give a couple bucks. These people can donate a room. Uh, we can maintain security and accountability through a system which isn't so manufactured and stuck up in bureaucracy. People can meet face to face with resources and a solution and a plan immediately. And there can be an arrangement for chores and small things around the house, but ultimately, mostly just a simple agreement which legal variables don't get in the way. People aren't worried about getting sued or robbed. That's really what they're most worried about, and being stuck running somewhat of a halfway house. So managing this so it doesn't become sort of a cove for people to be sexually exploited as well is critical. Um, that really could evolve quite elementary and for pennies on the dollar to any conditions we have today in the simplest measure ever made. Just putting people in the position to sort of organize appropriately with and through the government to answer these people's prayers. And, I think a lot of people would adapt to this and humble themselves in such a situation. Sometimes people carry a lot of baggage and sass from years of growing up with people and being in families that weren't really working. And somehow you sort of break away from those old connections and you make new ones and you realize what you did wrong. Even though you can't really pick up where you started in that other situation, you might be able to in this new one where somebody has a kind Christian heart or a kind and compassionate giving heart. That's really sort of a synonym for me because I was grown up with that culture and that association. But so many people have lived this out in so many different ways and just accounted it as being heartfelt. So managing such a concept in a growing situation, the government is becoming stagnant in response, really is what a lot of this comes down to. And it reweaved society to conduct itself more accountable and integrated with each other, even though it's not necessarily always the most luxurious or, uh, exactly perfect. But, you know, some of this stuff, some of these challenges are what create some of the most brilliant lessons in life. Just as childhood and raising a child, or really taking care of and empathizing, literally, not just through reading something and making a vote or something like this. Uh, a condition where, just like in South America, people don't have to feel paranoid in the different contexts of taking in such a simple concept. You know, why do we have to beg to these big billionaires when we can organize, how to get the streets tame ourselves? And depending on how that works out, it works out. We don't want a bunch of people starting claims that people are racist or something if something happens in a way that people start to see this as some sort of like, uh, I don't know, thing where people are sort of putting people below people. But, if you're not capable of taking care of yourself, this kind of adoption with strategic matters in mind uh, for adults in considerably difficult and challenging situations, especially when looking over children, could really take a lot off of these uh, centers focused on funding and just start simplifying and the most basic premise.